Hello and welcome to this video, which is special because it's not only a YouTube video but also a presentation for my work. Yay, because I kind of need to do a presentation, so I decided what better way than to do a video presentation on the immune system. Let me turn on a fan. There we go. And let's review the immune system. Now this I know is a virus, but in our particular case we're gonna be investigating a bacterial infection. So we will cover like an overview in detail on certain cells of your immune system and wrap it up at the end. So by overview I mean, let's just imagine a scenario. Imagine we're taking a walk in the park and you accidentally cut yourself on a little twig. You might think that it's just annoying and carry on. But while you're mildly annoyed, a catastrophe has occurred within the infection and the wound. Lots of cells have died, ripped apart by that twig, and there's blood and dirt everywhere. And probably worst of all, millions of bacteria now invade the open wound and check out the new area that they have just been pushed into. A human body is full of warmth, space, and resources. A perfect place for bacteria to live in. Our body does not exactly want to have bacteria in it, as the bacteria can harm our human body cells. So let's go into detail of our immune system and see what's really going on inside. Do note that this is a brief summary and not the full picture. Wait for the end of this video if you want a bigger picture. Phagocytes, our first line of defense. Alerted by the massacre of cells, hundreds of phagocytes rush to the wound. Most of these phagocytes are macrophages. If the average human cell was the size of a human, a macrophage would be like a black rhino. Huge cells that are our first line of defense. Well, in theory, this would be a good thing. You wouldn't want to annoy a black rhino. And bacteria, quote unquote, do annoy them. The other type of phagocytes are monocytes, sort of like macrophages that haven't grown up yet. They protect you, but are also mostly just cells that are waiting to turn into macrophages. They usually replace macrophages that have died in battle, or, well, have died because they have died of old age. Cells don't really die of old age, but they die of a process called apoptosis, which I will not go into detail of because it's irrelevant. Mostly, it's called like simple cell death, where a cell commits suicide in a way that's easy to clean up. Next, they use tentacle-like extensions to grab onto enemies and devour them whole. This is a very effective way of killing bacteria, and usually this alone would stop a small infection. However, things can get more serious. If this happens, the phagocytes will order inflammation. You may notice this as a small red bump at the place that you got injured at, and making it slightly warm. Inflammation is where blood vessels open up a little bit to release fluid into the battle, making it easier to fight enemies, as the fluid also releases certain proteins that can help mark enemies for destruction. They can cripple them, and sometimes even kill them. Since it's very vague and hard to go into, we won't go into detail on these proteins, but mostly the inflammation also alerts certain cells in the blood called neutrophils. If you would like to know more about these proteins, which are called complement, you can look at them at the end of this video as well. Neutrophils, basically chimps with machine guns. Neutrophils are like suicide bombers. They exist only to kill. Neutrophils make their way to the cell of battle and vomit toxic chemicals at the bacteria, which rips them apart. This is so dangerous that they can even kill body cells with these chemicals, and hence self-destruct after a few days after birth to prevent themselves from hurting the body. the self-destruct here is also apoptosis. Same. Some neutrophils even go so far as to push their suicide button, killing themselves and releasing the DNA, which is toxic chemicals, and stun and kill bacteria. Sometimes, the neutrophils can continue fighting after they do so for a short while, even though they are kind of already dead. This is how powerful neutrophils are. Natural killer cells, the killers. As their name suggests, they kill. Now, quick example, they aren't really involved in the fight as they mostly specialize in killing infected cells in a viral infection. Another job of natural killer cells is to detect cancer cells and kill them. Since they are not involved in this fight, let's move on and increase the severity of this fight. Now quickly, natural killer cells also kill cancer cells by identifying whether they are developing cancer or not. It's hard to explain how they can tell if they are developing cancer, but mostly people who have cancer, it means that their body has failed to detect the cancer cell before it got serious. It's basically your own immune cell, it's basically your own civilian cells turning into cells that are harmful to the body. So that's basically what cancer is, but we're gonna move on from here and go back to our twig example. Dendritic cells, the cell's intelligence. Now one quick thing is that cells are, well, to put it a kind way, stupid. They are small, simple organisms that don't have any will or desires. So when we talk about cell intelligence, it's mostly not exactly intelligence, but more of a special way of activating other cells. So now, let's go back. At the site of infection, things are really out of hand. Hundreds of immune cells and civilian cells have died. At this point, if the immune system stops here, death is fairly certain. However, this is where the dendritic cells come in. These dendritic cells will activate the second line of defense, called the adaptive immune system. It's one system divided into two areas. How beautiful is that? When dendritic cells identify that an infection is serious, they begin grabbing samples from the battlefield and covering themselves in it. Like a soldier decorating himself in the guts of a dead enemy. Kind of a horrible idea to visualize it, but that's basically what dendritic cells do. They move to the lymphatic system, a sort of transport network for immune cells. The lymphatic system also transports excess fluids from the inflammation back into the system. At the lymph nodes, they are cleaned up, and well, we're not going to go too far into that because that is not really the part of the lymphatic system we're looking at here. Here, they look for certain cells that are specialized to this very particular infection. Okay, hang on. Why is there a cell particularly specialized for this one particular infection? Well, it's pretty complicated, so for now, just remember that you have a cell in you specialized to this infection. Okay, let's move on. T cells, helper and killer. Next, we have the T cells, the specialized cells to special infections. The dendritic cell now rubs itself against all of the T cells, looking for the one particular cell that can connect to the one particular infection it's displaying. Once again, it's pretty complicated, but wait to the end of the video if you want more. So, when the T cell connects to a particular infection, it begins multiplying. These are helper T cells. One group of T cells move to the site of infection. At the site of infection, things are seriously out of hand. A macrophage that has been fighting long and hard is ready to lay down and die. But now, the T cells arrive. Using special proteins, they tell the macrophages to continue fighting. In a heartbeat, the macrophage is ready for battle again. This is basically the T cells showing the macrophage that, hey, this infection is serious. You have you have all permission to go all out and go crazy. The macrophage now knows that it can go and kill the bacteria as violently as it requires. In the case of a viral infection, the T cells can also become killer T cells that are like specialized natural killer cells. But in this case, they don't because, well, it's a bacterial infection. Remember, there was a second group of helper T cells that we did not talk about, which is here. One group moves on. The second group are looking for another type of cell, B cells. B cells, the heavy weapons factories. I'm gonna go pretty quickly for B cells because, well, there's more about B cells that are too complicated to understand here. But B cells also specialize. A producer of a weapon you've heard of, antibodies. These are specialized proteins that can mark the bacteria for destruction and guide macrophages to devour them. They can only be activated if a T cell comes by to activate them. After an infection is over, some T cells and B cells will remain as memory cells, granting you the immunity to that one particular infection, sometimes for the rest of your life. This is what they talk about when they say you're immune to certain diseases like a strain of dengue, or, for example, I believe chickenpox had the same thing, immunity for life. Finally, the conclusion. To end up, everything I've talked about in this is a very brief summary and is leaving out many details that could not really fit in. Because if I were to fit too many details in, well, firstly, this would be a really long video that you would not want to watch anymore. And secondly, well, yeah, it's too complicated to describe in a video. So if you want to learn more, you can check out Kurzgesagt in a nutshell. They have many more videos explaining different parts, such as Immune System 2, the complement system, which is the silent killer that I described earlier on. Here. Wait, no. Yes. It releases the fluid with certain proteins that can mark enemies for destruction. These proteins are part of the complement system. So, if you want to know even more and you're really interested in the immune system, you can check out their book, Immune, by head writer and creator of Kurzgesagt, Philipp Dettmer. Thanks for watching. I'll leave you with this final look at the immune system.